Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Camera with AndyGames. This is the podcast where I interview streamers and content creators with the sole purpose of getting to know the person a little bit better behind the camera. Today's episode is a little bit different, as I'll not be interviewing just a regular person, but instead three people in the form of a podcast that you should know about, and if you don't know, get to know. High scores, high stakes. Lads, how are we doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's more enthusiastic.
Yeah, like I love the enthusiasm on a Sunday night. So so our guests here,
this interview
these are absolutely you're killing it so far. So our guests from High Scores High Stake, we have the host, Mr. Lova, and his charming co-hosts, Tomahawk382 and Cardinal Smith. So yes, lads, you know the score with this. Just a few questions, just to let sort of the wider audience get to know you guys a little bit better on a deeper level, just as the title of this podcast suggests. So, firstly, these questions are open for all of you guys. So don't shout out all at once. So first of all, what got all of you guys into gaming? What were your inspirations? Where did you all begin in terms of gaming? What was that one thing that ignited that flame for you guys?
It's a good one, isn't it?
Very original. Very original.
I think my gaming journey is significantly longer than my co-hosts anyway.
Because of your age.
Mostly my age, yeah, but also my enthusiasm for the topic, of course, as well. It's a hard one. I always grew up in a house that had games consoles. My dad was always a little bit gaming curious, shall we say. I would never say my dad was a gamer, but he was always gaming curious. When we grew up, we had, for as long as I can remember anyway, I have no idea what came first. But growing up, we had an Amstrad CPC 464. There's my age for you.
You're showing your age.
Carbon. Carbon date me on that one. And alongside that, we also had an Atari 2600 and a Sega Master System. Beyond that, funny story about the Atari, played Pac-Man so much it caught fire. So that's what killed our poor Atari 2600. Beyond that, I always say the games console that made me a gamer was the original Sony PlayStation. That was the one. Yeah, it was a big old Christmas when we got that. So it was. I just remember it just being absolutely next level. So massive. We always talk about incremental improvements in consoles these days and diminishing returns. There was no such thing in the mid-90s. The PlayStation was absolutely miles ahead of the Sega Mega Drive that we were leaving behind for the Sony PlayStation. But yeah, definitely my dad played a huge role in me being a gamer, just because we were constantly wanting the newest, latest, greatest console. And fair play to Dad, he always got it. He always got us at the end. But yeah.
Fair play. That's, yeah, of course. It always helps, like, having, like, a parent, or at least one parent who is just like, I like the look of this. Even for me, I'm curious about this. And, obviously some X number of years later, we'll not say how many, still keeping that going. Brilliant. Yeah, Cardinal, we'll move on to you for the same question.
I was just thinking about this. I didn't have the rich father that Lova had, maybe, but we didn't. We were a little tech savvy, so we always had a computer of some sort. And I think I remember trying to load up this old PC and try and make like old Windows games work. Working with my family to do so, but we ended up trying to write our own games based off little books that we had and manuals, because the internet wasn't as helpful then. Ask Jeeves just wasn't dishing out the results he needed.
And you say Chris was showing his age before, and you mentioned Ask Jeeves.
Well,
that's what I was gonna say.
It all came down to the final choice of what I wanted for Christmas. Did I want like a go-kart to try and be sporty type, or did I want a PlayStation 1? My goodness, I didn't stop playing ISS Pro 98 for months.
Like, look back on that game. How well has it aged over like the last like 25 years plus? Probably not really, has it?
I did try again. It's very, very one-dimensional running and frustrating to play, but still good for its time. So great.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like I remember like in our household, like the first like first like football game we had was International Superstar Soccer '98 as well on the N64, and like looking back, it was the greatest thing like ever.
Oh.
I played it like a while ago, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is one of the worst things I've ever played.
You kick the ball and it sounds like concrete smashing against the wall. It's
exactly.
It's
yeah,
it's how the players primed their kick as well. It was like this like freeze frame nearly, and then they took their shot.
Yes.
Although I do have to say, in that it was nice that FC24 decided to pay homage to the like earlier games of football, like like that. It was I think that was quite a nice little throwback.
Special touch.
Exactly. And then Tomahawk, on to you for the same question. Now this is a weird one because I already know it from you, because for those who don't know, Tomahawk is my much older brother. So it's weird interviewing your actual brother on a podcast, but obviously for the sake of everybody listening, as I say, same question to you.
Yeah, it's a laugh on this one because like our gaming journey is kind of pretty similar to a point. Like we had the Nintendo 64 in the house. We played Mario 64 to death, Banjo-Kazooie, that kind of thing, and ISS, as you say. And then there was a point where you never really grew up out of that. And then I discovered these boys, and basically I went off into modern gaming, like with the Xbox 360, the PS3, the PS4, and now we're into the PS5 now as well. So, yeah, I've always just had a little clique of people to play games with, and it's kind of just how I managed to fall into it with this unruly crowd with me today.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I definitely think something like that is massively helpful, finding people with that common interest. Because like when you're growing up, especially like Tom, where we grew up, it was one of those things. There was a lot of people around our age, and a lot of like-minded people as well. So that always like kind of helped. But then there does get to that point when you're of like I want to say like between 11 and 13, 14, where you just kind of like lose touch of that. And then I think particularly with like when I was around that age, like what was coming out was all like Call of Duty, and it was all like Xbox, PS. It was mainly actually Xbox. Most people seem to play Xbox around that time, around like the sort of late 2000s, and it was all Call of Duty. All Call of Duty. Everyone just wanted that. And then online gaming became like a big thing and stuff, like like so like just as like a little side question for the three of yous, like going from that sort of like what would now be considered retro gaming to like the whole aspect of modern online gaming, was that an adjustment for you, or was it just like seamless, considering it was like maybe it tied into like what you like all played anyway, or was it just kind of like, oh yeah, it's a new game, oh my god, I can play online, here we
go? Not really. I think that every time we kind of have gone up in a system, you just kind of have this natural pick up and go aspect of it. The bigger problem I have is doing it now in reverse. So if I want to play something that is 25 plus years old, I find it a struggle now to get to grips with how things used to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the evolution of the systems and everything that has been going on, no, I find that you just are able to pick it up and it's completely the normal for you.
Yeah, that's fair. The only reason I ask really is because so obviously I recently got a PS5, and that's the first modern console I've ever bought. I genuinely, yeah. I am not ashamed to admit that.
His second most recent was a Japanese Nintendo. So
no, that wasn't even recent. It was that. If anything, that was old. If anything, that was the oldest console I ever bought, because that came out before the PAL version. So yeah. So, but yeah. So like I got the PS5, and I was kind of like playing about with a few settings, and like I connected my my PS Plus account to Discord, and
Mhm.
I went into a voice lobby, and I swear to God, I was amazed. Like, it was like, oh my God, the controller's talking to me. What? This is this is the best thing ever. I wanted to like fucking tell everybody about it. And it was like that middle-aged person who's just discovered Instagram and then they think they invented it. That was pretty much the feeling that I got out of that. And so, like I say, the reason I asked that is because it's so new to me, being like a retro gamer by like, that's my sort of standard. So
Mhm.
no, that's fair enough. Like, I
Yeah.
just
I kind of get where you're coming from with that one, because you're coming from Nintendo 64 to a PlayStation 5, which is separated by about nearly 20 years of progress. However,
closer
when
to
you talk
30.
about yeah, yeah, it is cool. I'm old. No, I remember just when you say about, I've just discovered something incredible. I remember way back when, getting a Sega Dreamcast, and I remember the first time logging into SegaNet, to play Phantasy Star Online, and it was the first. I think it was maybe the second game I ever played online. Certainly the first console game I ever played online, and it was like you could just see a whole new world literally open in front of you, and this is the most incredible thing I have ever done. There's people in this lobby, and we are talking to one another. Granted, it was text, so people were furiously typing on their Dreamcast keyboards, but it was just like, oh my days, this is unheard of. This is a whole new frontier for gaming. But from this, for me personally, from the Sega Dreamcast is like the biggest jump I've ever seen in gaming, coming from the PlayStation and the Mega Drive and the Atari 2600 and stuff. The Sega Dreamcast, to me, still to this day, is still the biggest leap in gaming I have ever seen, for a number of reasons. The graphics were just incredible. The online play was just revolutionary. It was a console that was far too far ahead. But since the Sega Dreamcast, everything's just been incremental sort of improvements on things. There's been no big culture shock for me, really. I mean, SegaNet just went into Xbox Live, which then became ubiquitous across the whole industry. Everyone has their online service now. But yeah, I can imagine going from an N64 to a PlayStation 5. It would be like stepping through your wardrobe and finding Narnia.
It's like Robin Williams in Jumanji turns around and goes, "What year is it?"
Pretty much, yeah. But yeah, Lovey, you're gonna absolutely hate me for this, but the first experience I had of what you just said about the first experience of like remotely online gaming that I ever had was it was the same feeling I had, the way you just described, as when I first played the Nintendo Wii and went into those little Mii lobbies.
Incredible scenes. Everyone drawing those wee pictures.
Exactly. That was like the sort of like Habbo Hotel 2.0 or something like crazy like that. Like, it was just, and there wasn't even any of that. Like that was the most basic online function. I don't even think you could really speak to people. It was one of those things where it was like you could play online with people, but it was
no
like
voice chat,
basically emoji chat or something like that. But yeah, no, it's been a wild ride. So yeah, so like just moving on here. So I guess this one's more directed at Lova, but obviously, the other two guys, you will obviously have some say in this as well. So high scores, high stakes. You guys have been doing this for nearly 2 years. You're hitting about 86 episodes now, if I remember correctly.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, it's quite a lot.
You're nearly pushing that 100. And obviously I like the format that you guys have, where you do like the weekly challenges, the league tables, and then when you are off season, you have your side quests where it's just different games like on showcase, things like that. But the question is, how did high scores, high stakes become high scores, high stakes?
Oh, that is a good one.
That is a good one. Because I more than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Longer than 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, it was a very, very, very long time ago. We sort of came up with the idea. I can't remember exactly what prompted the idea for a competitive gaming podcast. I think that may coincide with me rediscovering classic British video game TV on YouTube. So I was watching things like Games World and
Yeah.
Games Master and stuff. Again, carbon date me if you want. And I just remember going onto our group chat and going, here, I've got an idea for a podcast. Anyone want in? These two boys jumped up and went, yep. So we made a chat, our own separate chat with just the three of us, where we just started brainstorming ideas. We just sort of said, this is what I think it could be. What do you guys reckon? And yeah, it was it was a very, very, very long time coming from the first sort of discussions about a podcast, what it would look like, what would it be a video, would it be audio, etc., 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 to episode 1, I think was what, lads, a year? Over
I think
a
it was
year?
2 years. I think this
It was
started
pretty much 2
2020 in
years, yeah.
lockdown. And then the first episode didn't actually happen until 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very, very, very long time. Since episode 1, we have sort of iterated to sort of I always watch the episodes and just sort of go, I think we could do this better, I think we could do that better. But yeah, no, as a whole, high scores, high stakes. I always like to joke that I am the brains behind the operation, but very much it's not. It is being very much collaborative between the three of us and, of course, Sherry.
Yeah.
Sherry, who
R.I.P.
as well.
All right.
Who gave a lot of everything we do in that podcast is by committee. We sort of greenlight games. We share the responsibility for everything to do with it. So like challenges, name that games, editing, all that sort of good stuff is always sort of split as evenly as we can get it between the three of us. And we always, everyone can veto a game if they think it's not a good game for the podcast, and we sort of all QA and everything like that. But it is very much, it's a team sort of. It's been a team game since the start. It still is.
Oh, God,
Still is.
absolutely.
So I suppose like going like from 4 to 3 then like certainly makes it easier to veto games then, of course, because like all you need is a 2-to-1 vote. So like Dino Crisis comes to mind. Like obviously I'm sure Cardinal and Tomahawk are at the forefront of vetoing that.
I mean, yeah, after our Resident Evil remake challenge, I don't think there'll be many more PlayStation 1 era survival horror challenges.
It's funny though you should say about going from 4 to 3, because the original concept was just working as a trio. And as we started to deep dive like games and challenges and how you work it and stuff, we kind of just went, I think this is going to maybe work as a 4. It has to nearly work as a 4. So God love Sherry. He came in sort of at the 11th hour. So our first episode was Crash Bandicoot, the speed run of Insanity Beach, and we must have been locking in. We must have been doing challenge attempts for about 18 months. Poor Sherry had about 2 weeks.
And I think that was for Sherry.
That's what I was just thinking that kind of set the tone for how Sherry took his challenge attempts. So I think anyone who doesn't know, Sherry has this perpetual thought of one and done, and if it's one and done, that it's been deleted from the hard drive.
Yeah, pretty much. Sometimes it was deleted from the hard drive before the challenge deadline even happened with Sherry. No, it just when you're talking about like the sort of pre-release sort of ideas, I found this folder in my computer the other day, and it was just called podcast. And I have a folder called podcast stuff where everything goes into. And I was like, what's in that one? And we must have had about 6 different logos, with each one had a different name for the podcast. So there's high scores, low stakes, low scores, high stakes, and all your business. Yeah, the planning process behind this was very, very, very long indeed. And then until one day, I think it was you, Tom, was just like, Tom, what? If we don't record this, we're never going to do it. Let's just get something down. And Tom kind of strong-armed us into getting into a Discord chat, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah, that's the way it kind of has to go, isn't it? Like you go, especially with like a 2-year planning process on and off, it does get to a point where you just be like, look, if we're not going to do this now, when will we do it? So just and what is the worst that can happen? You put out an episode, and it's like Tom, because you sent me a email. What email? You sent me an email. It's weird. You forwarded me on an email that you got, and it was like
professional.
Yeah, but no, I know it makes it sound so professional, but like it's, but like it was about basically like podcast statistics, and it was like what 80-90% of people don't really ever make it past like the first 5 or 6 episodes or something. You'll be able to possibly like correct me on that, Tom, but it was something like that.
Yeah,
it's something ridiculous. I think it's something like 90% of podcasts will never make it past episode 8.
Yeah, something like that. Like, so I mean, taking that into consideration, you guys are like pushing 100 episodes now, like looking at like say the numbers, the analytics of every single episode, like was it something that you were ever conscious of, or was it just something that's like, well, do you know what, we don't actually care if this goes somewhere, great, if it doesn't, fine, we're still enjoying it? Was it like that kind of thing, or is it sort of thing that now you are so far in, it's kind of like, okay, the numbers are going up, does that kind of give you like sort of does that sort of make you just like put more into it and be like, okay, what can we do to kind of like retain it? Do we just keep it the same? Do we add more things in? Like, does it sort of help the creative flow?
I say it's a double-edged thing, because one thing is it's a hobby first and foremost. We like playing computer games, video games, and we like playing together, and this is an outlet for that. At the same time, when it's something you enjoy doing and you see it become a little more successful, or that other people might enjoy it, then that's a motivation too to keep doing it. There's two sides to it, because that we love, and at the end of the day, it's just something we like doing.
No,
Yeah,
fair.
Most of the time.
I mean,
yeah, I mean, but that's like totally fair, because like, I mean, and following on from that as well, like you guys have had a lot of like crossovers with other podcasts. You have had people from other podcasts on yours, and I know like you guys have made like appearances on that. Like, and in terms of like growth, is that the sort of thing that like, okay, this is something that I want to keep doing because it's allowing me to meet new people who are like-minded in not just a gaming sense, but in like a podcasting sense? Like, is like, surely that's something that like would make you want to like keep it going for as long term as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the ones that we did our first sort of like 40, 50 episodes. And I think it's really only until we started doing like our first batch of side quests that I was like, look, we're on the social media platforms. Let's start pushing and seeing who is responding and who's chatting to. Like, this is how we've discovered like Play Along Podcast and Discount Podcast. Like, and without doing the podcast, we'd never meet those people. We'd never be able to talk to those people. And they're all in a similar like-mindedness of us. And we are fortunate enough that they want to do episodes with us and we want to do episodes with them. And I think we always talk about podcasts helping podcasts, and you have a community and you want to grow that community, and it's a shared community at the end of the day. But it's brilliant. It's something I never really thought about initially, and I think as we have sort of come into our own and we've sort of found our feet, it's quite nice when you actually hear that someone goes, oh, I have listened to that, oh, I do enjoy that. And yeah, the networking side of it is pretty cool as well.
Yeah. I like you say, podcast supporting podcasts. Like, for me, I think that's an important thing, because like a lot of people can stream, a lot of people can grow with streaming, but I feel like if you're doing a podcast, that's probably harder to do. Like, looking back at that statistic about what 90% don't make it past episode 8, but like once you kind of get those networks, you'll probably find that there are more people in that same position who are like, we've been doing this for ages. We want to kind of like, and I think collaboration is like, it's an incredible thing. It's like people do get to sort of know like other people, what their podcasts are like, and people can learn from each other in that sense, and sort of like maybe adapt little bits and pieces from, like, take your guys' show for example. Like, I haven't really seen a podcast similar to it, like remotely. Like, I mean, the amount of editing and work that goes into it, the fact that your guys' podcast takes like the form of, like, you could just say a game show, like you said before, Lava. Like, that was like partly to do with like the inspiration of it. Like, it's, you have your segmented pieces, you have your challenge, you'll break off into like another segment like Name That Game, which I think Name That Game is like, I think it's brilliant. That's why I task you guys with one earlier on as well. Like, I think it's very innovative, and like, because there's like almost like an infinite sort of, there's like like an infinite wealth of resources out there to be able to like do that. It's definitely something to keep fresh. I'm sure like there's probably other podcasts as well that you guys know who might have adopted certain things like that too. But yeah, I think the notion of podcast supporting podcasts is it's brilliant. And so just to then touch on the fact that you guys didn't always start as a trio, you did have Mr. John Sherry, who was one of the OG members of High Scores High Stakes. You know, pour one out for the homies here.
GBNF.
Exactly. So what was that like going from a quartet to a trio? Was that like an adjustment? How do you find that going forward? Like, has that sort of been, I don't want to say has it been beneficial or a hindrance, but like there's no real way to sort of word that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, how has that shaped the podcast for your last 2 seasons and going forward? Probably the best way to say that.
This is a tough one. You two can add whenever you feel like. Sherry was a key part in High Scores High Stakes. To be honest, he always brought high energy. He was always really good fun, always really good value for listening as well. He kind of alluded to us a little bit ahead of time, saying that, you know, he was having trouble with fitting it into his daily life and things like that. And then when he confirmed that he was going, it wasn't a bombshell to us anyway. It wasn't like this big reveal. He just didn't come into the house one day and go, I'm leaving. It was preluded well in advance. But when he said, yeah, I can't do this anymore, we were all like, oh no. What did we do? Because our whole premise was the whole format of High Scores High Stakes did revolve around 4 people. So the scoring system was first place 3 points, second place 2 points, third place 1, fourth place 0. And it was like, okay, so how do we, well, first and foremost, how do we do team games? Because we used to do 2v2 quite a lot.
Yeah.
Now we can't do 2v2s, which then wipes out so many games on the PlayStation Plus catalog. And then you have the even bigger thing is, how do we score these challenges? Do we still keep third place does third place get 1 point? Does it get 0 points? Do we have to minimize the scoring system so does first place get 2 points, second place gets 1 point? And there was a whole load of like moving parts to this, where losing Sherry really did throw us into a wee bit of turmoil. There was a lot of behind the scenes discussions and after record discussions about what is the best way to go forward. We did throw out the idea of seeing if we could replace Sherry with someone else. I don't think those conversations went very far, but that was definitely thrown out there on more than one occasion. And then we just went, don't know what, this was originally us 3.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can work it with the 3 of us. So yeah, season 4 started last week, and it is our first season as a trio rather than a quartet. Am I forgetting anything? I don't think I am, but there was a load of things thrown out, like what
weird,
now?
Yeah, I think Sherry kind of just said, you know, this was never going to be a full-time thing or a permanent thing, at least anyway, and it did kind of give us a lot of time to work in the background of how we were going to work it forward. But in typical High Scores High Stakes fashion, we left everything to the last minute, and we finished our season 3 finale. We did a little homage in memoriam to Sherry, and then basically spent our side quest series kind of figuring out like the intricacies of how this new season's going to work. And I look at the games that we have announced for season 4 on the regular, and I think we've kind of got a fair idea how it's going to work. I think this is going to be a super different season and a tester to see how it works as a trio. I think there's definitely a couple of games coming up that we have teased. I'm not going to say which game, but we have teased as a 2v1, a round robin 2v1. So I'm intrigued to see how we adapt with certain games on this now.
Yeah.
One last thing I would say is there's a competitive edge to it. You go from a 25% chance that you'll finish last of a 4-person team to 33% chance of finishing last. That's worrying, because when you're earning things like High Scores High Stakes championship mugs, there's less of a chance you'll pick this up. You know, that means something. That means something to Tom.
So for those listening and not watching, Cardinal has just showcased his trophy for winning. Was it the first or second season?
That's the
It was
season
the first
3
and the third.
First and third season. The high scores, high stakes mug, which not available to the public. It is a prestige. It's an honor to have one of them. And Cardinal, the worthy winner of season 1 and 3.
I let people kiss it.
We say worthy winner. I mean,
well, I mean, we say worthy winner, but there has been a history of swindling in the high scores, high stakes, particularly in the side quests. Well, this is very much an if you know, you know, but you guys know.
There's a lot of hijinks.
There is a lot of hijinks and a lot of screen cheating, might I add. Tomahawk.
Well, who knows? I'm not going to linger on that. That's in the past. I look forward, not backwards.
Maybe I should do the same. To be honest, like guys can't let it go at this point. But sorry, go on.
Sorry, Cardinal had said about it goes from the 25% chance to that 33% chance. I think I said it last week. Boys backed me up on this one that Sherry's away. Sherry was like a really, really good presence in the podcast, but I think now that you have that idea that we have a new final, a new last place coming up this season, it has, I think, upped the ante in terms of how the competition's going to work now, because I think everyone's going to want to try their hardest not to finish last.
Yeah. So we don't want to be the new Sherry.
so it's certainly not turning into a case of even if you're third, you're still on the podium. It's if you're third, some bad things are coming your way by the signs of it.
Yeah, I remember Lova saying in season 3 a while back, at least anyway, it's like, we're mates, we're always going to be mates, but when it comes to competition gameplay, I'm going to destroy you all.
That sounds like it was taken straight from Helldivers, I'm not going to lie.
Absolutely.
So then just on Sherry then, and the fact, like you say, Lova, that he was an integral part of high scores, high stakes. Was there even the smallest part of you that on the last episode of season 3 that he was just going to turn and go, I'm not fucking leaving?
Yes.
All percentage.
We were. I think I might have sent him a text message or a couple of text messages going, come on back. Sure. Be grand. But to be fair to him, I think the big thing that really took me by surprise by podcasting is when you see the podcast, it just seems like in our case, it just looks like it's 4 guys sitting in front of the computer talking for 1 hour a week. What I didn't realize and appreciate was just how much work goes on in the background. Yeah. You have to get the games, you have to play the games, you have to record the games, you have to edit that gameplay, you have to get everyone together to record it and then edit it and then release. And I think Sherry just couldn't fit it in. But I do remember texting him going, come on ahead, Sherry Grant. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. No, and of course, and that leads me very, very nicely on to the next question, because obviously you 3 guys and Sherry as well, all in terms of life in the same position. You're all married, kids, you're all family men, work full time, etc. So based around that, how do you maintain the balance between your family life and gaming and podcasting, especially because you do this on a weekly basis, and even outside of the series, you have your side quest series and things. Surely that can be a lot, because you do have a lot of children between these. It's safe to say. I'm not going to dox you and say how many, but of course, these are family men with children. Where individually, where do you find the balance for that to be able to keep the dream alive, as it were?
It's a lot of late nights. That's all I'll say on that. I know for a fact that Mrs. Tomahawk will not be aware of this, but the amount of times I've had to just sneak into bed after a late record, and that will have startled her or unsettled her, and she'll have woke up and went, what time is it? And I'll be like, it's just coming to 12 o'clock. And then I hope that she doesn't look at her own phone and realize that it's 1:45 in the morning.
I can vouch for that. Although that's just every night for me, to be fair. There's
a lot of gaslighting. There is a lot of gaslighting going on when it comes to late night gaming and podcasting. I will say that much.
Yeah, I will second that one. You have to pick what's important, and I don't even know the names of my kids. No. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, no, as Tom says, I find my time playing games for the podcast, or even just playing games for my own enjoyment, happens when the kids are in bed and Mrs. Lova is either in bed or at work. If it doesn't meet both those criteria, I cannot at all play games. But yeah, as Tom says, it's a whole load of late nights. I think our recording schedule is always late on. And it can run on some weeks as well. I mean, there's been weeks where we've had issues with rendering or editing, and I know personally I've spent a good 16 hours looking at an editing screen trying to get something to work and trying to troubleshoot why it's not working. We've all done it. I mean, we all do. I think the biggest thing for us, certainly for me, maintaining my like balance between work, home, podcast, is the fact that us three sort of rotate the editing and rendering. So we do. So I like to think there's not one of us who's constantly doing the same job over and over and over again. We do sort of rotate it week on, week off type thing.
Yeah, of course.
Which I think helps. What about you, Cardinal?
Definitely. I like to call them, I guess I'll call them partner points. It's credits you have to earn with your other half or family to be able to pull this off. And when you're running low on partner points, someone else has to do the editing. I guess you have to commit time to your real life to build up more points for them to spend.
Yeah, touching grass is a must at times in order to sort of keep the balance. Because I kind of test, like, you know, with you guys for the with the late nights, like the episode that I featured on, one of the side quests, which we don't talk about here. We do not talk about this. But I remember we did the episode, but I think the first 20 minutes there was like a slight technical issue, and that had to be re-recorded. And this was all
Yes.
we were already maybe 30 minutes behind, and I think it got to maybe about 2:00, and it was like, oh, this episode has then turned into an hour 40 minutes. Oh no.
I think at that point it was our longest episode. I think
so, yeah.
I think we've only ever done 2 longer episodes. I think that was GTA 5 and our Death Stranding episode. I think they both had the 2 hour. Final Fantasy 7 also had 2 hours as well. So yeah, it's very rare that they go on that long, but it has been known to happen.
With the ironic thing about that one at the time being the longest episode was that it was based on a speedrun challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, true.
Which
they like to talk, you know?
Yeah. And also, for those who have never seen High Scores, High Stakes, for those who have never watched, one, do. Just saying. But secondly, for every time that they have a guest on and there is a guest challenge, always remember the house always wins.
I mean,
I'm not bitter, I promise.
Integrity is everything in High Scores, High Stakes,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I think
You know,
I think people will see coming up in the very near future. Integrity is something we hold very highly. There has never ever been any shenanigans or sort of distortion of the facts.
Yeah.
What you see on the episode is what happened, how it happened, as it happened, as we like to say.
Exactly. Like, you know what, from everybody listening and watching here, what you have seen from these guys, they're obviously free stand-up guys, you know, like there could be never any underhanded actions going on behind the scenes. You know, you guys have learned this very quickly. So this one is probably more directed to Lova and Tomahawk. So Gamerfest. Alongside myself, you guys were sorry, Cardinal, I know that you might have to sit this one out, I'm afraid. But yes,
I want to hear all about it.
Fair enough. Then it works out even better. So obviously I was there with you guys, but tell me about your guys' experience from Gamerfest, in terms of, like, one, just being at a gaming convention, and two, being at a gaming convention as a podcast, like representing your brand. Like, what did you get out of that, and like how was it generally?
I had a blast. I actually think it was a great day. It wasn't at all how I thought the day was going to go or what I was to expect really, but we rocked up. We got our banging creator pass. Just gonna flaunt that out there today.
Fuck you, by the way.
It actually was a brilliant.
We're just here to create.
That's it.
Here to
Exactly. It was a brilliant time.
I wasn't
to just
apparently,
go
fuck's
down
sake.
and talk to. We were able to talk to like some great guys in like local development companies. Some sort of working in teams of 1, 2, 3, or whatever, and some obviously working as part of a larger setup. Really, for the person who doesn't use LinkedIn, I now have a lot of LinkedIn to deal with now. So I think it's going to be super beneficial for the podcast sort of in the long run. I kind of want to get through our season 4 competition before I start laying groundwork for anything guest wise, but that's sort of what I wanted to get out of it, and I feel as if there's been a good foundation set for that going forward. Plus, I think some of the games we did get to play, brilliant. Just the demographics that they were telling us that they wanted to hit, they were absolutely 100% hitting that, and yeah, like I couldn't fault that day, and it was a real case of imposter syndrome heavily kicked in. It was like, these people are asking about the podcast and people wanting to know about the podcast, and I'm just like, I literally messaged the organizers like a week before and said, can I have a pass please? And they went yes, only for the fact that the guy had listened to our Tomb Raider episode, that he was like,
Yeah.
I really like that, I really liked what you're doing, and blah blah blah. So it was kind of like right place, right time. And I figured we all have said, don't ask, you don't get. And I'm super glad that I asked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Worked out for some anyway, didn't it?
That was super diplomatic for someone who was in our chat saying there was a cosplayer going they wanted to meet. They really fancied. Maybe that was a different chat. No.
It must have been.
Yeah, definitely a different one.
For me, I want to just mirror basically what Tom said there. Obviously, I brought Little Lova with me, and yeah, it was just really good just to see him sort of engage with people, and just sort of, he was like a little social butterfly at it. I got a lot from that, and watching him absolutely hammer the Sonic the Hedgehog speed running challenge as well was unreal.
Unlike some, yeah, and that was incredible. I thought that was brilliant. Like, he was certainly in his element. Like,
yeah, but beyond the personal sort of, just watching Little Lova have the absolute time of his life at it, I personally thought it was really well run. I thought everything ran on time as it was meant to. Getting into the building was a breeze. I think we were inside the building with my creator pass in about 2-3 minutes after parking the car. And then just everyone, all the developers, all the sort of officials there were more than happy to stop, have a chat with you, ask questions, answer your questions and stuff like that. Is the big thing. It had a real like good sense of community where you didn't feel like asking someone questions or talking to a developer or whoever it might have been you were talking to. You never felt like you were putting them out. They were more than happy to give you your time, and it was sort of more than just question and answer. It was, you're having full conversations with people until we start doing high scores, high stakes. It's having conversation with people I would never have the opportunity of talking to, without it. I had a blast. I thought it was a really, really, really good day. I felt it today, big time.
For sure.
I am knackered. But beyond that, no, absolute fantastic day. It was just a really well-run convention that was full of like truly good to great games. There was, I don't have much bad to say about it whatsoever. It was a really good day.
Yeah,
really good day.
100%. Like, I will 100% agree with you both on everything that you're saying there. So to link that to the podcast, like, obviously you guys have been primarily PlayStation game based. It's probably fair to say. But obviously, like, with all the indie devs that you guys got chatting to, and the fact that they're all PC games, really, like, just to be honest, what would be then the sort of like, could we possibly see like a shift in High Scores, High Stakes, going from like PlayStation, branching out into like sort of more computer and indie games sort of thing, whilst also keeping the same format?
Well,
That's a loaded question, I know, but I
it's a
mean,
good question.
just after having been exposed to like what we were exposed to and having the conversations, making the network sort of thing, like, is it outside of the realms of possibility?
I mean,
I think the option
will,
is open there for PlayStation and Sony to really open up now and offer an affiliation with the High Scores High Stake podcast to stop that kind of thing happening. But love, what's your opinion?
I mean, money talks. If Sony or any of the representatives are listening and they want to lock us down to be a PlayStation only podcast, our wallets, I mean, our emails are open. highscoreshighstakes@gmail.com. No, seriously though, no. I mean, the Cardinals a PC gamer. I would say predominantly a PC gamer. Let's be honest here. I play on PC too. I play an awful. I would say most of my game time is done on Steam Deck. To be honest, I think with regards to podcast, I think PlayStation offers something that the PC just can't, and that is quite simply a shared gaming library.
Yeah.
I mean, most of our game challenges comes from PlayStation Plus, and that keeps costs down for us because we don't have to buy the game because it's already there in PlayStation Plus. You just download it and go at it effectively. I mean, I like to think you're talking about indie games and sort of rather than big AAAs. I think over the 70, I mean, maybe 50, 60 odd episodes of competitive gameplay, I think we've had a really good mix of AAA games, AA games, and we've had a good few indies sprinkled in there. And we will have more indies coming forward as well without spoiling anything.
No, of course.
That's one thing we did say we were trying to do is like, I think getting to a certain point, once we hit us past a certain landmark, we were thinking about, do we tease a classic PlayStation 1 season? Do we do an indie only season? So stuff like that's not out of the realm of possibility, but I would seriously need to upgrade my kit if that were to be the
yeah, because I was thinking that, like, whenever Lova, you were saying that, you know, Cardinal primarily PC gamer, you do most of your gaming on PC. So then the first thing I thought was, so Tomahawk's the one letting the side down.
That's
no comment.
The motto. That is the our Latin motto for High Scores, High Stakes.
I mean, someone has to prop up the league table, to be fair, don't they?
Don't they, Tomahawk?
Who knows? I don't know. I'm going by last season's league table, and I don't think it's me, to be fair.
I was walking through the Hall of Records of High Scores High Stakes Studios, and there was 2 pictures of Cardinal and 1 picture of me.
Yeah.
Not a picture of Tomahawk to be found anywhere, really.
Just chilling in the middle.
But I'm sure that'll change.
Maybe. How many years have you guys got?
Who knows?
Next question.
As long as Lova can stay alive, you know, we've got at least a few more years.
I mean, a few years might be pushing it. I am getting on in years. Certainly, I would say certainly a good 16 months left.
If you do every Monday from now until that point.
Yeah. So basically what we're saying here is you got to episode 100 and then, you know, it'll be Lova's farewell episode.
Once we hit episode 100, we get like the Queen's honors list. Maybe Tomahawk will get a cup then. Who knows?
Who knows?
Phenomenal. So so let's step outside gaming and podcasting for a minute here. This is an open question for the 3 of you. Outside of all this, what are your hobbies and interests? What do you guys like to get up to? Say you have a free day, just yourselves, no kids, nothing. It's just a day for you to live out your favorite hobbies. What are you guys doing? And like, moreover, what would be certain things in that aspect that like not a lot of people might know about you guys?
What is this perfect world where we don't have kids and free time and nobody bothers us?
It's like having having 3 money and no kids. If you get that reference, you know, we can be friends. But yeah, I mean that's why it's a hypothetical or a theoretical question.
I mean, as soon as you asked that question, my first thought was, I'm sleeping. That's my hobby now. um, I don't know. I mean, gaming's a big hobby of mine. Suppose I do. Well, I used to run a lot. Running would be a really good release for me personally. I do try to find a lot of time. If my boss isn't at this, I try to find a little bit of time. I try to find as much time as possible whilst at work when I'm not busy to go to the gym and do 5 or 10K on the treadmill, just to sort of be by myself in my own little world where earphones in, no one's talking to me. If someone tries to talk to me, they're being ignored, and it's just me, myself, my thoughts, and some brilliant Spotify playlist for at least an hour. That's that's mine.
That's actually funny you say that, because the last guest I had on this podcast more or less said the same thing, that she'll go to the gym and that's her away from screen time. That's her time.
Yeah.
The only time she gets to just be by herself. And the only funny thing about that, me saying that, is this person, MC, has been mentioned in every single podcast episode. It's just because either someone's mentioned or it's just something's come up. So there we go. Shout out again to MC. But yeah, like that's, I think, particularly in the position where, you work full time and you're a full-time dad at the same time, like that's the sort of like, that's the only time that you're going to get to be able to just kind of step away from all that. So you know what, that is, yeah, totally fair. So yeah, Cardinal, we'll move on to you next.
Ooh, I hoped you wouldn't, but I imagine
I gotta include you too as well.
all this money and all this free time
in this perfect world that doesn't exist.
I didn't want to say this, but in my perfect world, I'd have a group of friends where we could play games together freely, or in some set schedule that I could commit to, because that would be amazing. And that's part of the reason why I do this podcast. But to get away from that, I kept it all through lockdown. I just wish I had the money or the time. But if I had like a free 10K, that buys you a little single seater racer called Formula V, and you could race in local championships for as little cost as that, just those 5-figure sums.
For the measly sum of £10,000.
Yeah. I mean, everything, my whole life from start to finish has been about racing and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I always wanted to do, and that's why I'm as late as I was tonight, because I was still watching the Formula One TV.
Totally fair.
That's my side quest.
I love the wording of that. That's your side quest. It's a nice little, that's a little throw in of the high scores, high stakes side quest when they're off season. Which, if you don't listen to High Scores, High Stakes, do.
This whole episode's just a big
well, that's the whole point of this podcast. It's a massive plug for the people who come on, because that's what it's all about. Sponsored by. It's basically
High Scores, High Stakes, via Capcom
and Sony. If the last 15 minutes is anything to go by, if they want to,
if they come through.
Yeah, exactly.
It only takes one view.
That you know what, that is like. Yeah, that is so true. It only takes one view, the right person to see, your podcast to kind of take it off. So one thing I will always say though is, like, if you ever have anything on hand, like to use for like for example, so I have this coffee cup here, for example, and if a representative from Barista Bar were watching, my camera's really far away, but like, or just always have like a can of Coke facing the street, facing the camera or something, and just be like, yes, that's very interesting. I see your point. Anyway.
It'd be like that scene in Wayne's World. It's like people just do things for money. It makes me so mad.
Exactly. Yeah,
even if it's delicious.
Yeah,
my head hurts.
Exactly. That's so true. But yes, moving on to Tomahawk. Same question directed your way.
I do tend to like touching grass a little bit, so I do be out running as often as I can. As often as I can help it. No, because particularly in the last couple of years, once I settled into office 9 to 5 life, I've realized that you wake up, you check your phone, you're in the office on a computer all day. You get home, you doom scroll, you do parent things. So if it's an hour, I get to just not. I stick the headphones in. I just run for a bit. It's a nice little bit of a release, and then I sort of come down. I do husband wife things, and then I can just shut down for about an hour, and I'll play an hour gaming, and that kind of is. Yeah, that's sort of what I like to do, and then I'm getting really into my D&D at the minute, so I'm actually starting
Nerd.
so I'm actually starting a campaign on that soon. So I'm really intrigued just to get going on that, because I've sort of been like, my gaming stuff at the minute has been very like, what's quick and easy to play, and a lot of it turns out is turn-based RPG stuff. So why not go and meet random people that are also into turn-based RPG stuff? So that'll be a nice bit of a release and a wee break. If it's a break away from a lot of screen time, then I'm all for it. Like,
you're a different man than I met 2 years ago.
Indeed. We're gonna have to get Sherry back and get rid of Tom.
What is an RPG? What is civilization? All this stuff from Tom.
I'm a very evolved, eclectic man now because of this podcast. There was a time where I would have only have played AAAs and many AAAs
FIFA
at one time. Exactly.
I can vouch for that. FIFA or nothing.
Now
Apology
I'm
rules for the
playing
win.
indie games. Now I'm playing indie games. I'm playing Baldur's Gate. I'm playing horror classics. I'm playing the whole works here now. So I'm still playing far more games at one time than I ever should be. But the selection is more broad now.
Yeah. No, it's, you know what? That's like I've noticed the common theme of all your answers there. And I don't know if that is something that comes hand in hand with parenthood, but it's basically having a hobby that involves you in a fast-paced motion going the opposite direction. Whether you're running or racing or something.
I don't know if my running can ever be described as fast, but yes.
If it's faster than walking, it still counts. But no, that's fair. And
I don't get to do my hobby.
You just watch people on the screen do your hobby.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think it's like, what you guys have said about that, in terms of that, it's like, emphasizes the importance of being away from the screen. Like, especially, considering, say, the podcast was kind of conceptualized during COVID, and obviously since COVID, with like the sort of increase of like remote working, people are like at a computer screen a hell of a lot more, solely because that was just all that there was to really do. Apart from maybe touch a bit of grass, but sure, we weren't allowed. So like to be able to sort of like go back to that and just escape reality for just a little while whilst doing something healthy and productive like that. And yeah, like, I mean, I totally sort of I totally get that. That's totally fair. So I have just one more question for you guys, and this one for Tomahawk and for Cardinal might be a thinker. For Lova, not so much, because once I ask, you guys will understand, and this is why I'm going to ask you two guys first. So Tomahawk, if you could replay one game for the first time, what would it be?
Mass Effect 2.
Okay.
I genuinely think Mass Effect 2 is one of the greatest, if not, it's top 3 of my greatest games of all time. I think I've played that now about 2 or 3 times recently through that, and I just kind of know every story beat, and I know what every choice has, every consequence and everything, and beyond that. I think the first time I ever played that, I was so blown away about how in-depth that game was, especially like on the back of them basically rebuilding the game from Mass Effect 1. everything that they did in that game, from like chapter 1 had a consequence to chapter 10 or whatever, however it was worked. Story was phenomenal, the gameplay was phenomenal. What, like, actually being able to experience going from 1 to 2 and how even the gunplay had changed, blew me away. Absolutely blew me away as a game and as a sequel to a game. For BioWare to have just gone, what we're going to do is change everything. We're going to build it from the ground up again. And the trade-off for it paid off so well. It's one of my games I hold very dearly to me. Yeah, Mass Effect 2 has to be.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Like, yeah, I remember whenever I was younger watching you play that game. Now, obviously, I have the attention span of like a teaspoon, so I just remembered. Oh, look, space, future, cool, yeah, guns.
I will say the Legacy Collection is on PlayStation Plus now, so I highly recommend picking it up.
I probably will. It would probably be a good offline one and something to maybe help with the attention span. But no, fair. That's totally fair. Cardinal, same question to you. If you could replay one game for the first time, what would it be?
I think your first experience playing this game, really, your life never really starts until you do. And that game is Gollum, because until you see that JPEG motion for yourself, you haven't really witnessed any video game. I don't know. There's plenty to choose from, because there's different games have formative impacts on your life, right?
Of course.
For various reasons. I think I'll go for my stereotypical Final Fantasy VII for the first time, because part of that was a shared experience with my brother, renting this disc or bringing it back from a store to try. We just didn't leave the PlayStation for the weekend. And then that's the first game I reached where the clock stopped ticking up, because it stopped at 99 hours and 59 minutes.
Wow.
And so you just don't know how long you played.
It's funny that because right now, clocking in 100 hours of a game is, they call that rookie numbers, right? But back in the day, you hit 100 hours and it's like, wow, holy fuck, that is like absolutely next level.
It's insane. Right now, they're like, 1,000 hours, easy. But then, like 100 hours, what were you doing with your time? There's so many other games to be playing, and game lifespans. You could. Oh, you wanted to collect a few more rings. You wanted to see if you could actually make Green Hill level 1 of Sonic last 1 minute 49 seconds. Is that possible?
1 minute 36 seconds. Like, come on, give me some fucking credit here.
I didn't think it was, but Saturday and Andy.
I mean, the last place might have been 149. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Look. I'll give you credit. I heard that Tom here took on the Formula One challenge and did a 1 minute 17 around the Red Bull Ring.
Did he tell you that,
online. He did. And the fastest time was 1 minute 9, which was a long way away.
Tomahawk.
The speedrun challenges hit 1 minute 6. You're over 10 seconds plus slower around one of the shortest tracks in the calendar. Incredible. But good.
Do you know? I need to interject on this a second. Tomahawk, 1 minute 17.
I can't remember.
Was this on the one that I was there with you?
Yeah, that's the time I've chose to remember. So
1 minute 1 minute 17. Okay. I'm sorry to inform you, but that is a total lie.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. I'm gonna live in denial.
It was 127. So
was it 127?
It was 127. it was because okay. So for context, at Gamerfest, there was like a Red Bull like sponsorship thing, and they were showcasing F1 23, I think it was. A bit odd for not a new game, but whatever. And so their fastest time of the day was like written on a notepad, and that was obviously being added to as this time was beaten. And there was a load of contact information of people. Now I'm assuming these are the people who had the best time of the day, and they were going to be contacted about something. I'm guessing anyway.
Yeah.
And So Tom gets his minute 27 best lap. Now, albeit he wins the race, but he did much better than I did. I was terrible at that game, but he didn't see that, so it could have been amazing. But so Tom finishes the race. He wins. He's all proud of himself with his minute 27 fastest lap. So, oh, good. And he sees this notepad with all his contact details on. He says, "Oh, do you need me to write down my information?" No, you're all good. You could just get your free Red Bull on the way out. It's fine.
At that point, I knew that I hadn't done the fastest lap, but
No, not by a fucking long shot.
I have chosen to save 10 seconds off for the sheer fact that I have the memory span of a gnat.
The best time of the day at that time was a minute 19.
19?
A minute 19.
Incredible scenes.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I needed like 6 more weeks to practice. That's it.
You said 16 yesterday. You have been called out about 5 times in the last 2 minutes here.
I'm not.
As I said at the start, high scores, high stakes is all about integrity. It's non-questionable.
And, but do you know what? At least you guys own up to that, and at least you stand by your morals. And what more could define integrity than that?
Incredible scenes. 127.
So,
did you walk around or did you run around it? Was that your R's?
I may have
using the Mazda from the GT7
I may
challenge.
Have T-boned Leclerc and Hamilton and everyone to get past. So it wasn't quick, but it was chaotic.
It was 127 with all those time penalties, apparently. So Lover, I'm going to direct the same question to yourself. If you could replay one game for the first time, what would it be, and why would it be Dino Crisis?
Ooh. Well, as chairman of the Association of Remaking Dino Crisis, I just want to say that Dino Crisis is an often misunderstood classic in the PlayStation 1 library. It is often reduced to Resident Evil with dinosaurs, which is totally false. It's fabricated and it's a malicious lie. It is more than that. It is everything you want in a survival horror game. It has scares, it has action, it has high stakes, high intensity, good set pieces, really good boss battles, really good enemy variety to an extent. But what it does have an Evil series as a whole is inventive puzzles. Dino Crisis is great. It is a fantastic game. It deserves way more. It is a cult classic and it deserves way more mainstream recognition. I would like to think that the recent re-release of it on PlayStation 5 will get it some mainstream recognition that it finally deserves, and hopefully force Capcom's arm into doing a remake for it. Dino Crisis is way more than Resident Evil with dinosaurs. And don't get me wrong, Resident Evil is a great game. But Dino Crisis just hits differently. It's something to do with the soundscape and design of it, the graphical style of it, the way that Mikami sort of he's always used framing of the camera angles in Resident Evil, and he took it to a whole new level with Dino Crisis. These full 3D environments allowed him to not only set the stage, but then dynamically change it on the fly in order to increase the horror and spectacle potential of every single scene. There's not a missed opportunity in that game for maximizing the impact of what's going on screen. And in classic Capcom fashion, they aren't afraid of not showing you what is coming up next. There is several parts of that game where you can hear something, but you won't be able to see it until the game wants you to see it. It is a great game. I would go as far as saying Dino Crisis is probably one of the best horror games ever made, because it truly is an absolute masterclass in how to make a horror game. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Falls away at the back end. The last maybe hour of it is a wee bit meh, but I think that's a sort of criticism you can throw at pretty much every Resident Evil title, even the great ones. The last half hour, 45 minutes of it, the last third of the game, it does tend to fall apart when it becomes a power fantasy, but that's just the style at the time. Struggle for the first 3 quarters, and then the last quarter is your reward for the struggle. is when you are finally more powerful than everything that's been murdering you up to that point. Remake Dino Crisis is what I'm saying here. Dino Crisis is great.
He's still reaching for that Capcom sponsorship. He's desperate.
One day.
That was a lot to unpack. Like, I love the passion behind that and the fact that you were able to say all of that in one breath. Now, to be fair, you basically
He says every episode.
Yeah, well, that was my next point. You guys have probably heard that exact word for word for the last fucking four months. But at the same time, you also have just read out your last number 12 tweets as well, word for word too. So
I'm not even sure how many days it is since the original one released.
It's over nearly. It must be hitting 10,000 nearly.
9,200, maybe
Something, it's
9,300 days.
Yeah, I'm invested, and every time I see a tweet about Dino Crisis, how many days it is, I'm invested. I do want to see after your speech about it. There, I do want to go play it. I see it's on like PS Plus now, so I do want to go and play. I want to see what it's like. I want to see if I get that experience.
It's like Resident Evil, but with dinosaurs.
Apparently, it's more than just Resident Evil with dinosaurs.
It's way more. It's so much more. It's like, I think I said this on the podcast, season 4, episode 1. I think where people said it was just it's a Resident Evil game, but it was more of, I think Capcom subconsciously wanted to test new things and how they could innovate in Resident Evil, but were kind of frightened of doing it within Resident Evil, so they give this side project, because there's an awful lot of the DNA of Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil Code Veronica within Dino Crisis. It is just a little stepping point. It is a revolution of what came before with Resident Evil, and it is sorely forgotten.
Yeah,
it's a great game. I would recommend downloading it and playing it. I'm about halfway through on the PlayStation 5. I think it's every bit as good now as what it was in 1999.
Fair. And so I know I was like joking when I asked it, but that is the game you would, if you could replay it for the first time, that would be the game.
Probably not.
Yeah, I was kind of like, because I realized when I said on why would it be Dino Crisis, I feel like that just kind of set off something in the back.
I mean, yes.
Dino Crisis was mentioned. It's like, my turn, assholes.
I mean, it would probably be top 3. I think the other 2 games that would join it is Resident Evil, the 2002 GameCube remake.
And then would the first one be Resident Evil with dinosaurs?
No, I think Resident Evil the remake is the singular best horror game ever made, and I will die on that hill. And probably the other game that would join it would be Shenmue 2. Shenmue 2 from the Sega Dreamcast. It is a game that is so good, and it just hit at it revolutionized gaming. Without Shenmue, you wouldn't have Grand Theft Auto 3. It just revolutionized gaming in its entirety. The most expensive game ever made at that point in time. I think it cost £60 million. Oh
wow!
But it was a game that was so good that when it came to finishing the final mission, I couldn't do it because I didn't want the game to end. My save file on my Dreamcast is right at the end of the game, and I don't think I ever clicked that button.
You still have the
original save file?
Yeah.
On my VMU on my Dreamcast upstairs. Yeah,
you've got to do it.
I've beat the game loads, but that one save file, I've never done it. I bought it a couple of years later on the original Xbox, beat it on the original Xbox, bought it on PlayStation 4, and beat it a few times on the PlayStation 4. Got the platinum and stuff like that. It's just an incredible game. Shenmue, again, a cult classic. Maybe that's my style. But yeah, but it'd be one of those 3. Definitely Dino Crisis, Resident Evil Remake, or Shenmue 1 and 2.
Totally
would be
fair.
The game I would, if I could wipe my memory and play my game, be one of those 3, 100%.
They're definitely ones to check out then. But you mentioned the GameCube remake of Resident Evil.
Yep.
I have some beef with that game.
As
much as I have beef with you and Tomahawk surrounding that game. You guys know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Resident Evil 1 remake is phenomenal, and it's like how a remake should be done.
I mean, side by side comparison, yes, totally will agree. For context, last year, around this time last year, October 2023, I was fairly new to streaming, and I decided, it's October. Oh, and now it clicks. And now it clicks with Lova. Now it clicks. So, fairly new to streaming, and I decided, oh, it's October. I'll do like a spooky season kind of thing. That lasted one stream because of Resident Evil, and because of Tomahawk and Lova. I decided to play Resident Evil Remake on the GameCube, and it was going swimmingly. As much as me and horror games do, I had a gun. I saw a zombie, and I was like, let's shoot it. Which, if you've ever played Resident Evil 1, is probably the worst thing you should do. Just walk around. Just walk around. And I got stuck for about an hour in like I'd done like a little bit of the game at this point, like a tiny bit, but I was like in the sort of would you say it's like the lobby or something, or wherever, one of the downstairs rooms in the house anyway. And there is like a grandfather clock in this room. I'm looking at my chat. I'm like, help me, please. I am stuck. And for the next 30 minutes, we just go to the clock, look at the clock, look at the clock, inspect the clock, look at the clock. And I'm like, okay. No command was coming up. Nothing was happening. And I'm like, okay, no, there's got to be. These guys have played this game before. They wouldn't be lying. People on the internet lie to me? No, they would not do that. And after about half an hour, they were like, yeah, we were just joking the whole time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And yeah, I had a somewhat of an arguably terrible experience playing that game. It wasn't scary. It was fun, but I sucked at it.
Play it offline. It definitely is not a game you want to stream blindly. I'll say that.
I feel like it's good for that though, like, because I was just so bad at it, and like at the time, I think like it wasn't one of the most viewed streams I'd ever had at the time, but people said it was one of the more entertaining ones because of how garbage I was at it.
Yeah,
but that was the end of my spooky season. The spooky season ended quicker than it began, thanks to that. That is my beef with Resident Evil Remake.
Give it another go. It's an absolutely fantastic game.
The problem is it's been 12 months. I feel like I'm going to have to start it again, and I'm going to be looking at that goddamn clock for another fucking hour and just be like, you got to have something for me.
The clock doesn't come until much later.
Yeah, much later. Just watch the season 2, episode 5 of High Scores, High Stakes, and you'll see how to do the first 45 minutes of the game in a handy 18 minutes.
12 months on.
This is when I just watch my screen. Just watch my screen. Don't watch the other ones.
I know.
You'll get like 2 minutes into the game.
I would trust that notion. But yes, guys, it has been great having you on behind the camera with AndyGames. It has been very fun. It's been very insightful. Nice learning about the podcast and about you guys as individuals. Do you guys have any final thoughts or comments for the listeners today?
Join my campaign. #remake Dino Crisis. Thank you.
There.
There's dozens of us.
Capcom, if you've gotten this far into the podcast, which of course you have, listen to Mr. Lova. Listen to Mr. Lova. He's been, for 9,200 odd days, has been campaigning for this. Let him have it. Don't let it hit 10,000. We don't know if Lover will still be here. He's old.
I am available as an advisor on the project as well, Capcom. Hit me up.
There you have it. What about you two lads? You got any final thoughts for the listeners today?
No, I hope that we haven't bored anyone to tears with our ramble.
I don't think there is no such thing as boring people to tears here. It's the whole point of this is just getting to know the people behind the camera. As cliche as that sounds, that is exactly the whole point of it. But yes,
I would like to hear from people in chat, people respond to this, or people who watch that. What game is it you passionately want remade?
I would like to hear this too. We will dive into this. We will dive into that For those who are watching currently, you can see on the screen where to find High Scores High Stakes. That is on Twitter at High Scores High Stakes, on TikTok at High Scores High Stakes, and on Spotify and all other streaming platforms that you can imagine at, you guessed it, High Scores High Stakes. We have had Mr. _ Lova _ Lova, Tomahawk 382, and Cardinal _ Smith as our guests, forming High Scores High Stakes. Thank you again, guys. It has been lovely having you on, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds for High Scores High Stakes.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us on, mate.
Absolute
awesome.
And for everybody listening today, thank you so much. We will be back again with another installment of Behind the Camera with AndyGames. But until then, take care, and we will see you next time.